Hi, I'm KYC, and you're with Montclair Amherst, a business and consultancy dedicating to helping small businesses and individuals thrive. Today, I wanted to talk about AML, BSA, and KYC. What are those three-letter acronyms that everyone's talking about? Well, AML stands for anti-money laundering. KYC stands for Know Your Client, and BSA stands for the Bank Secrecy Act. All of these things were created to restrict criminals from committing evil actions and to prevent the financial system from enabling them from committing their actions. So why is this important? You used to be able to incorporate and open a bank account with relative ease. As long as you had a corporate charter, you had information about yourself and what you plan to do, and you had a generalized business plan. You didn't even need all of these things. You could just open a bank account for your business with relative ease. Why didn't this work? Well, criminals ruin things for everyone. They commit crimes using the financial system. They conceal their crimes using the financial system. And they legitimize money that they make from their crimes using the financial system. So a few bad apples spoiled the bunch. And what happened was that all these businesses had to deal with ever-increasing restrictions and regulations with what they can and can't do with their money. Banks became more onerous and regulatory. Criminals committed crimes and got away with them. So, pretty much around the 60s and 70s, a bunch of countries were trying to figure out what to do in order to reduce the amount of criminal activity in the financial system. So countries like the United States, Great Britain, European countries enacted some bank secrecy laws requiring information sharing with banks and governments, requiring banks to collect information on behalf of governments, and requiring banks to not serve criminals using know your customer requirements. The US and several other nations in the West changed the role of the bank from a facilitator of transactions and a privacy-oriented bank to an inspector and regulator. Because there were constitutional protections in the US against surveillance and privacy laws, the government couldn't collect this data. But it required banks to do so to act in the place of government. During this time when the Bank Secrecy Act was being introduced, there was huge outcry among a large contingent of citizens saying that this was effectively violating their 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights to unreasonable search and seizure, unfair treatment, due process of the law. So banks were filled with these regulations. They had to follow these regulations, and it restricted capital to very boring businesses. KYC regulations means bank can't serve criminals. Banks have to know their client and make sure they're not making criminal activity. But you may think that all this served to stop criminals, but it didn't. Criminals kept doing these criminal activities. They kept using loopholes in the system, like money mules and law firms, to conceal their transactions and legitimize their money by going around the system and enabling empty suits to act in their interest. This is insanity. All of these laws aren't working, and it's demonstrably so. You see instances where banks have to pay fines for failing to do these anti-money laundering requirements because criminals found a novel way to conceal their transactions and legitimize their transactions. You see criminals still engaging in the drug trade and still engaging in arms trafficking, harmful activities, but they aren't being stopped. And all of this is impacting people who are underbanked, who don't have sources of income, so they can't prove their source of income to banks. So they are too high risk to have bank accounts. It restricts entrepreneurs who have to comply with various regulations in order to open a business bank account and continue their business in a reasonable manner. People are being debanked all the time, and it's showing that small business owners and poorer individuals are unable to keep up with the ever-increasing changing landscape of bank regulation. So with these draconian laws, you may think they would have tried to reform these laws in these Western countries, but they don't. Insanity is doing the same thing multiple times and expecting different results. It's expecting that you enact all these invasive and dangerous regulatory burden to banks and expecting that this will stop crime. It's insane, but you have to follow the rules. If you don't like the rules, you have to go to a jurisdiction where the rules are different and more amenable. In everything, you have to go where you are welcome. Here is my advice for especially Americans who want to open a bank account. There's multiple things banks look at in terms of risk profile. And I've opened many bank accounts with different banks, and I've been rejected from a few bank accounts because I wasn't in their risk profile. Here are some things to keep note of. You have to avoid controversial businesses. You can't offer sexual services or certain services related to OnlyFans and expect to be banked properly by the major reputable banks. Anything relating to tobacco, marijuana, firearms, arms trading, gambling, those are very difficult places because there's so much regulations around these types of things, and banks are not willing to touch these types of things with 10-foot poles. So you have to go to a specialized bank for these things and make sure you're complying with all things, you have the necessary licenses, and you're doing the right thing. In addition to that, you have to have a license for whatever business you pursue. So if you're a lawyer, if you're a lawyer and you have a corporation or an LLC or something, make sure it's a professional LLC, and make sure you have your business registered with your license. In case you want to open an account, you have to have a certificate of good standing. You have to have a bunch of licenses related to your field. You have to make sure that all of your regulations are in order. If you're in law, same thing. Medicine, make sure that you have your medical license. If you work in finance, especially if you work in finance, you need certain certifications from FINRA or the AICPA if you're a CPA, or certain licenses from your state to do certain financial activities on behalf of your clients. You also need to be aware of what type of business you are. You have to have a good explanation of what you do for when you're opening these bank accounts for your business. So, for example, I own a consultancy and I'm dedicated to advising businesses on growth. I don't do their business taxes for them. I don't give financial advice. What I do is very narrow. It's specifically management consulting. If I said to a bank that I consult related to accounting and finance, they would expect more licenses, and they would look at my business account with more scrutiny than if I said I consult with businesses in order to help them grow, in order to help their marketing, help their strategy. There's a specific language you need to use for your type of business because certain words are no-no words. Secondly, register for states you are operating in. So for every state you have substantial business in, like you have an office, you have certain employees, you have a significant amount of client share from a certain place. You have to have your business registered there. And for digital services businesses, this might be a bit harsh because digital services businesses like consultancies, professional services, accounting, finance, they generally have a nexus of business which can be anywhere. They can choose where they want to work, but it's not easy for businesses to effectively get this done right because there's certain tax implications of registering your business in a different state. But you need to make sure you have your business registered for states you are working with, and for businesses you work with who are big clients. Because states want their tax revenue, and states want their evidence of you doing business in that state. Also, this is another issue for digital services businesses. Virtual offices are not appropriate places for headquarters for a lot of banks. What does this mean? Even if you do business in an office that you have a virtual agreement with, even if you host meetings there, even if you receive mail, even if you conduct business, even if you have an employee there, virtual office buildings are considered subpar for certain banks. They want evidence of where you work and where the principal place of business is done. And this is hard for digital services businesses because digital services businesses can do business anywhere. So virtual offices are an issue, and if you travel a lot and you can't necessarily say you have a home business, so you may need to rent an actual office space for just for the sake of having a physical residence. This might be difficult, but it's unfortunate, but a lot of banks, especially your big, well-capitalized banks, won't accept you unless they can confirm that your business has a good physical location. My last piece of advice: go where you are welcome. Not every bank will accept your business. Not every bank likes your business. Not every bank will think your business is in their framework. So what you have to do is you have to effectively understand your business needs, and go with the best bank account that offers what you are willing to work with, and go with the best bank account for you. Go where you are welcome. that's all of my advice for small businesses and opening bank accounts. But essentially, AML, BSA, KYC causes a lot of headaches, and it's very difficult for business owners to handle all of these things because there's so many regulatory requirements. Things are confusing, and not all of the rules are updated and available to you instantly. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and the process of opening a bank account is difficult in many cases, especially in Western countries, but it doesn't always have to be that way. There are certain banks that offer remote first offerings. There's certain banks that only need your documents and evidence of who you are and will open a bank account for you. So make sure that you're doing the right thing. Make sure you do everything legally. And if you're unsatisfied with wherever you are, wherever you're at, go where you are welcome. If you have any questions for me, need advice on bank account opening, strategy related to starting a business, doing the essential features of your business, you can contact me at www.montclairamherst.com. You can contact me at info@montclairamherst.com. You can reach out to me, schedule a consultation, and hopefully you can become a regular client. So that's my update, and like and subscribe if you found this useful for you.